Hello everybody and welcome to another Beyond All Reason video. Today we are on Canis River with Modulo versus Lopatka. And as we zoom on down, both players actually choosing the exact same start position here, which is a oddity because normally this is not a position people have been picking in the past. This position does give a favorable defensive position. Obviously, you can only be attacked through these two positions here. Normally, we've seen most players spawn in this kind of more central spot. This does give you easy access to other locations, as well as the very important geo that is on this map. The one geo on the map, this wind isn't great. The max of 14. It's, you know, not terrible, but it's not amazing. So often we see players kind of focusing on getting that geo up, and having your start position here gives you the option to quickly expand to it, as well as an easier defensive time. But both players choosing this higher ground. It's definitely more a defensive start, as I said. But if you can secure, what's with that drawing? If you can secure these kind of, you know, sections, you're going to have a fairly well-defended base. Now, as we hold shift space, we can see what both players are currently queued up. Lopatka with Lopatka with a con, incisor, con, 2 incisors, 2 cons, 5 incisors, scout, and Modulo just finished his con with 4 scouts, 2 incisors, con, 4 incisors, con. So a lot less constructors queued up as of at this point in time. And we go on over to Modulo here, see how he's doing so far. Both players have chosen to go vehicle, and both players are also playing Cortex today. With the early rascals getting out. Modulo not doing great for energy, though, at this point in time. And as he's going to be getting the construction bots coming up in his queue fairly soon, he kind of needs to build more energy. And there we go, as we see it. Could have probably done with doing that a little bit earlier. But as long as his commander isn't assisting the factory, you can see his energy isn't that bad. Oh, but he's actually walking away before the vehicle had finished, which is a interesting choice there. He probably definitely had enough metal to finish that construction vehicle, but instead decided not to. Meanwhile, over here, the scouts are being picked up pretty easily by Lopatka, and this defensive position is going to make it pretty hard for either player to do any form of early raiding. But Modulo is aware of where Lopatka is, and if we select Lopatka's point of view, he doesn't know where his opponent is yet. That information is important to have. But when it comes to being out and about, Lopatka actually a little bit behind here. Modulo already getting the third mechs in that little pile. Lopatka only just starting it. But both players, you could argue that Lopatka is actually ahead when it comes to the initial base mechs. And you can see when we select this construction vehicle, he's just got a huge amount of wins queued. He's currently got 2 constructors in his base yet to move out. And both players being pretty passive in this early game. This may cause a slight problem if this constructor doesn't leave the, should we say, build bay, I guess. But no, it's fine. You notice that both players also choose to go for a mixture of solars and winds here. This is to provide them with a bit of a buffer in case the wind completely dies, like it is very much about to. And you could argue Lopatka's kind of wasting build power right now. He's got 3 constructors on that, building a construction turret and then going back to it, rather than using one of these constructors to instead, you know, expand north, get these 3 metal extractors up here, and then maybe even spread out even further. You can see that is exactly what Modulo is doing right now. He's got one constructor starting to expand towards one of the choke points on the map. Although it looks like there's choke points, we're about to see that this section here can quite easily be traversed by vehicles as we select F2 here to see the transversability map. And you can see that these incisors can quite easily go through this little bit of water there. So if you're new to the game, don't let that catch you out, because that will end very badly for you if you're not aware that that's there. This middle section, though, is completely unpassable. So it's only a few points on the map. So this point, here, and here, that are places that can be crossed. Does look like Modulo's commander may be about to get a little bit of action here. Doesn't currently have the energy to de-gun. Now he does. There's a bit too many units there for him to just go right into it without taking too much damage. And this scouting force instead seems to be heading elsewhere, seeing if there's anything else it can pick off, which is a smart move. Lopatka managing to take the scout out though, so that's good. And Lopatka kind of doesn't know where to send the units. Bear in mind, we look at his view here. He doesn't really have much in the way of, you know, intel, should we say. There's obviously no radar in the nearby area, so rather than kind of pressure and potentially lose the 6 incisors, which can just be eaten, he's deciding to fall back. Both players sitting on a fairly decent size of metal here, with 600 for Lopatka, and Modulo sitting on just below 500. It does look like he's starting to use it more and more now. And a very, very passive early start. You can see that when it comes to economy, actually we could zoom out on the map and get a bit more of an overview of that. When it comes to metal a second, both players are fairly even here with not much in the difference. Build power is currently identical, with both players having the exact same amount of build power. It does look like most of Modulo's is in these 3 construction turrets, which is the same here. The 3 construction turrets that Lopatka has. Modulo did attempt to instigate a fight there, but lost 1 incisor and decided to fall back. As we go back to looking at the stats here, we can see that that early expansion of Modulo has given him a 4% rather metal difference. It's not a lot. It's only 400, just short of 400 metal. And energy produced wise as well, 4k energy production is quite a significant difference. When it comes to damage dealt, with not much damage actually being dealt as of yet, just a few scouts and a single incisor, that value is not really important whatsoever. But we do see that Modulo has decided to transition over to full brutes now. No pounders or anything, whereas his opponent Lopatka is still on the incisors. Now, as we zoom out again and did the old space, we can see that Lopatka is going for some pounders and now has only just started switching into brutes actually, and his opponent is going lashes and brutes. See the incisors not really doing a lot of damage here, but because of the flanking bonus that they're getting, just surrounding the brutes here, able to slowly whittle them down, and the brutes are missing quite a few shots. But in the end, running into the LLTs will cause these incisors to all die, and leaving the reclaimed field of a mixture of just short of 800 metal, all for Modulo. Meanwhile, on the north, a attempted push through from Lopatka is potentially going to break through here. Modulo does not have the units nearby, and as those incisors start taking a vast amount of damage, this construction vehicle needs to turn around. See again, Lopatka focusing quite a lot of his attention over here towards where the Geo is. That's what would normally be, you know, a big problem if you lose that. But these incisors are able to clear up a huge flank. And continuing to go over here as well. Meanwhile, in the middle, Modulo manages to get a single construction vehicle for his troubles. But as he's marking elsewhere, he does leave these two incisors to get through. I'm getting a decent amount of metal income here. Destroyed. That's going to put Modulo significantly in the rear. And the armed metal extractor does get destroyed as well. Kind of wish these armed metal extractors were a little bit better. But Modulo actually also going for an air lab here, whereas his opponent Lopatka going for a bot lab. The bot lab is clearly to get the reclaim. There is a lot of reclaim to be had on this map. There's a lot of energy reclaim that can be had. And getting that before your opponent or before it catches fire is quite important. Lopatka actually has his Geo up and running as well, whereas Modulo is still rebuilding. This is going to put Modulo further and further behind. And that metal produced bonus that he had is going to start diminishing very quickly. You can see it's already gone down to 2%. There's a lot of reclaim that could be had here. Modulo does not have anywhere near the units really to hold this front. And that construction vehicle is 100% going to die. Although a double LOT is good versus this quantity of tanks, it is going to do nothing. And now he really needs to worry. At the same time though, Modulo applying pressure on the north side. This is a fairly open path here to Lopatka's base. And taking out a lot of the defenses. There's a lot of reclaim. The issue is he doesn't really have anything to, you know, eat that up. Modulo actually going for a very, very far north, what you would call proxy bot lab. You don't often see that. And here comes in some shurikens trying to defend the front of Modulo. There is a anti-air bot there, a little trasher. But that is being completely eaten, or EMP'd rather. Modulo unable to capitalize on the push of the north, leaving plenty of time for Lopatka to send reinforcements up there. And there is some interesting things happening really when you look at it. Modulo's commander being all the way up here, it's a dangerous spot, right? Because he cannot defend his base at all with his commander. You know, Lopatka kind of on one of the fronts. He can move like to the middle here to help defend the middle. He could like fall back if he needs to. Modulo is so far away, just that ain't gonna happen. And the res bots have managed to resurrect a lot of stuff, including the double LOT that was built here. And metal produced, though, is back advantage to Modulo. 10% difference in metal so far. This reclaim field desperately needs Modulo to get some units there to try and eat that all up before Lopatka gets it. It's 2k metal there. He is now trying to get some res bots. 2.5k metal. It's a lot of metal to leave there. And you can see Modulo trying to kind of dictate where Lopatka sends his forces by applying some pressure to this southern side. Lopatka's commander is here, though, and ready to degun. Meanwhile, Modulo is losing some of this ground on the north side. Resbots were attempting to resurrect, but instead switched over to reclaiming just before that pounder got built. And you can see Modulo just throwing forces at the front right now, just getting as much of that reclaim as he can. And that is not going to work. And look how many res spots are there from Lopatka. Just instantly resing anything there. Now, this is going to cause big problem for Modulo with his commander right next to this reclaim blob. At the same time, you can see Modulo just desperately trying to make Lopatka focus elsewhere, but it isn't working. And the D-gun goes off, getting one of his own tanks instead. Dangerous position here as Lopatka goes in for the kill, grouping up all the tanks, and with 1% health, Modulo managing to just get out. The construction turret there definitely saved his life. Back up to 4% health now, and the things that were resurrected desperately running down to try and finish this game. Meanwhile, with all those forces being sent north, Modulo managing to make a hole in the front line and starting taking out all of the metal extractors that were there. And this is dangerous now, as you can see Modulo running back as quick as he can. These tanks can definitely catch up to him very quickly though. And this forward base is going to be wiped out pretty quick. Bombing run though, attempting now to make a bit of a dent in the economy of Lopatka. Will it make it though? That is the question. And here they come. One of the bombers already dead before it drops its bombs. Good spread of bombs. They got one clump with 2 bombers left, but a bunch of tanks have made it in to Lopatka's base. Second bomb drop does get a big cluster of windmills there. Now these tanks are kind of home free. The base on the north has been destroyed. The little proxy base, but that is kind of to be expected. The question is now, is Modulo going to be able to make the most of this damage he's dealt? His commander's extremely weak. Desperately needs healing up, so he's going to be completely useless. But this is a lot of metal to be leaving around, and you can see here that all of this is being resurrected. And although he's done a big chunk of economy damage and just slowly spreading out, he now does have this blob of units marching towards his base. There's plenty of anti-air there, rather, to stop any kind of shurikens. And you can see that most of this force here is all resurrected stuff. Modulo with a huge economy advantage at the moment. The question is he going to be able to stave off this push? Wasted construction vehicles along the bottom, unfortunately. And here comes a big pile of tanks coming out of the base of Lopatka as well. Modulo's commander still hasn't fully healed up with only 36% health. And although that was a very, very large amount of damage, Modulo currently doesn't have the units to be able to make the most of that. And even more, the wrecks here are just not able to be secured. And it looks like the force along the bottom is going to get control of that. Modulo goes ham into the units here that have all grouped up. That was a massive mistake, as lots of his forces get destroyed. And again, unable to secure the reclaim field. Modulo doesn't seem to be able to push out enough units quickly enough. And now he's being attacked on multiple fronts. And you can see these res bots down here just instantly rezzing anything that was left. And Lopatka has just become the Horde, absorbing everything that he can see and making it his, as he's getting pushed down Modulo on both sides. Having to send units either side. Doesn't matter if you've got a significant metal advantage here, if he's not able to produce units quick enough. This may have been a slight mistake here as well, as Modulo has transitioned over to Tech 2, meaning that his unit disadvantage he had is now being compounded even more. And he drastically needs a large quantity of Tech 2 tanks on the field to really make this change. If he had continued production of Tech 1, he might have been alright. But that transition of Tech 2, if he can get enough units out, may save him. But this reclaim field is just constantly being resurrected and turned into more opponents for him. And Modulo now pushed right back to his base. And Zars are an interesting choice here. Zars very useful against Tech 1 and especially clumped up Tech 1. However, he has no forces left to kind of field for the Tsar. And when you look at the sheer quantity, 36 brutes, 11 thugs, and then a few miscellaneous units. The Tsar needs at least 2 shots off per brute in order to kill one that's full health. And as we see the shot land, you can see it does damage to a large area, and he does manage to take out multiple, but it's still taking multiple shots. And look how quick these have closed in. If they kept going, they would have been able to surround the Tsar quite easily. Also, a slight issue for Modulo here is this group of 21 brutes are making their way up along the top. They do have no air protection here. But this is more and more economy damage that Modulo is taking. He has gone for a construction vehicle Tech 2. But just look at the map. It was so much on Modulo's favor, but he just was leaving too many wreck fields. And because of that, Lopatka was able to just reclaim and resurrect everything. And as you can see, most of this army, most of these armies are all resurrected units. And this is just the power of resurrection. Even with the huge economy damage that Lopatka took, he's able to keep the fight up, and pretty much most of that damage should probably have been repaired by now. And you can see also Lopatka spreading his forces out considerably here, making that Tsar nowhere near as efficient. Tigers may have been a better choice here, as just straight upgraded tanks. Modulo getting into a position here to get some D-guns off. It's one good D-gun, another double kill there from a D-gun. And the shurikens get taken out pretty quickly. More great D-guns there from Modulo as another Tsar's built. But Modulo calls the GG as he loses the southern side of his base. And well played, both players. This just shows you the power of res bots.
Battle ended.
Pretty much the entire army of Lopatka was resurrected there, especially towards the end. We can see he's only just transitioned to Tech 2 himself. And that damage that Modulo dealt was huge. But he wasn't able to control any of the reclaim fields, and that is inevitably what lost him the game. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this game here, and I will see you all next time.